It's summer of 2018. Worlds is right around the corner. Yet, T1, then called SK Telecom T1, had just subbed out their star player, Lee Faker Sang-Hyun, for the first time in 2 years.
It is the first game that Faker has not played for SKT in 886 days. Your starting mid laner will be a player people don't even remember played for SKT.
It's going to be Blossom and Hyrian.
In Season 8, T1 had their worst placing as an organization in their history of competing in the LCK, finishing 7th with a subpar 8-10 record. It was a year marked with the lowest of the lows as Faker struggled to be the rock that SKT used to rely on, all while veteran teammates like Bang and Wolf suffered from burnout after years of performing at the highest level in SKT. Despite the team's efforts, SKT's last flicker of hope would soon be squashed in a one-sided game at 5 against Gen G in the regional qualifiers, taking away all hopes the team had for redemption in Worlds 2018. But wait a minute. Didn't Faker just pull this off a few months ago?
Oh, they go back in! Faker flashes in, and down goes Knight! Once again, when you need someone, when you need anyone to stand up and show just what this game's all about, it's Faker! He finds another!
With their Worlds run last season, Faker cemented his legacy as the greatest player in League of Legends history, becoming the only player to not only win 5 World Championships, but to do it nearly a decade apart. But that year, in 2018, doubts were cast on the veteran mid laner for his inconsistent performances all year long. Rumors were even coming along that he might finally be leaving the team to retire in NA. So, what changed? Well, as much as we'd love to say Faker single-handedly carried T1 to their 5th title and the story ended happily ever after, this isn't just about Faker. Let me tell you the story of the 4 rookies that would help Faker rebuild the dynasty of SKT. T1's climb back to the top has been years in the making, and to rise, one must first fall. In the aftermath of their 2018 season, T1 decided to all in on building a team that could once again win it all, recruiting only the best talent in each role. A super team with historic names in the LCK like Khan and Mata. Khan, despite never having won an international title, is considered to be among the best top laners in the history of the game, on par with legends like Nuguri and the Shy. Mata, on the other hand, was a part of the championship team who many consider to be one of the strongest world champions in League's history, Samsung White. And at the start, the team looked good. Across spring and summer, T1 proved that they were just better than the competition, convincingly taking down then rivals Griffin for the regular season trophy. But when it really mattered, that's when the team fell apart. The legendary roster wasn't enough to stop G2 eSports with both Perks and Caps at their prime and innovating with their off-meta picks. Once at MSI against a double mage bot lane and top lane Pyke, and a second time at Worlds against Perks' and Mickey X's iconic Yasuo Gragas bot lane.
This is it! The greatest team in the history of League of Legends, taken down by the greatest team Europe has ever produced!
In those losses, Faker was outshone by his rival mid, Caps on every point, and the team was a step behind the curve when it came down to it. The way things were, despite all the changes, SKT was still not in a position to win and redeem their name. So, for better or for worse, they had to let go of everything they knew and go back to the drawing board. In 2020, SKT had traded in their old look and was now going by just T1. And with that overhaul came a lot of changes that would completely restructure how the team was run. For starters, longtime coach Koma left the organization in 2019 after being with the team for 7 long years. This would inevitably change the team's approach to the game with an all-new coaching staff in charge, of which would allow one of our rookies to finally enter the fray later on in the season. In 2020, or what we will now refer to as the start of the T1 era, the organization saw a moment of success in spring, finishing first in the playoffs with a lineup made of veterans alongside a promising rookie in Kana. Yet, come summer, the team started to struggle once more with spring playoffs MVP Cuz subbing out for the rookie jungler Elim, and Faker even being taken out once more for a more promising rookie mid laner in Closer. Add to that rumors behind the scenes of how players like Faker and Teddy were disagreeing on how they fundamentally approached the game, signs were pointing that T1 was stumbling to find its footing ahead of regional finals. So, they finally put in the first to come of the new generation of T1, Gumayusi. Gumayusi first played for T1 in the team's last yet most important series of the year in the LCK Regional Finals 2020. But who was this rookie that just took Teddy's spot in the most crucial time of the competitive season? Gumayusi was a marksman, even respected by pros in solo queue since he reached Challenger at the age of 15. He started as a trainee for T1 the year after in 2018 after much encouragement from his father. Well, partly because his brother, StarCraft legend Innovation, also played for SKT in his olden days and wanted Gumayusi to only play for the best. Nevertheless, it took Guma 3 long years before he could step up to the plate and play for T1 on the main stage. But when he did, he made heads turn with an impressive lane-dominant 9-0 and 8 Caitlyn pick that helped secure their first victory in their gauntlet run. And while the team would go on to lose against Gen G 0-3 and fail to qualify for Worlds, the tournament provided T1 a blueprint of how they could move forward into the next season with a more proactive, early game-centric approach that Gumayusi's laning prowess provided them in the regional finals. In the hopes of finding the perfect balance of players for the newfound style of play, T1 decided to invest into experimenting with a 10-man roster for the 2021 season. But despite having a 10-man roster, T1 only had one support for the coming season, Kyria. Among his teammates, Zeus, Guma, and Owner was the earliest to debut in the LCK in 2020 with Dragon X. In his first year, the rookie had big shoes to fill, being partnered with a legend like Deft in the bottom lane. Yet, despite all the pressure, Kyria came out swinging with a confidence that you would only see in storied veterans. He was more than capable playing traditional supports like Thresh or Yuumi, and could also throw off opponents with off-meta picks like Set, Pantheon, and even Kayle if the situation called for it. And that was exactly what T1 needed in the bot lane. An innovator with strong laning who could push the team and help unlock Gumayusi's potential. To go even further, Kyria would win Support of the Year in the LCK and be the only member of the T1 2021 roster to be part of the spring and summer All-LCK first team. As the year grew on and Worlds came closer, it became clearer and clearer that Gumayusi and Kyria was a match made in heaven, and together, they became a force to be reckoned with as their synergy grew with every game they played. In the midst of this, T1 still had yet to decide on a jungler, whether to stick with Elim, Cuz, or go with a newer recruit Owner. Even after only playing under half of the regular season games in spring and summer, T1 had decided to put their faith in a rookie jungler Owner for the summer playoffs. Owner was the newest recruit to T1, yet got to play on the main roster almost immediately upon the recommendation of their mid laner Closer. Owner was a certified Lee Sin main, cocky, arrogant, but backed it all up with his mechanics. But what was most important was that he slotted into the already existing roster perfectly, matching his fellow rookie's aggression. Heading into week 6 of the spring season, Owner would begin to prove that he was the real deal, with a flashy engage that was a stark contrast from the style of play that Cuz and Teddy brought to the team up until they were benched. Owner was the kind of jungler that T1 had so desperately wanted for years, with a high ceiling to boot, given it was just his rookie year. And even if Owner only had a short amount of time to build synergy with his solo lanes, he was still able to carry the team in Game 5 of the finals of regionals to qualify T1 for Worlds 2021 as the last seed of the LCK. In spite of it all, T1's Band-Aid roster of Kana, Owner, Faker, Gumayusi, Kyria made it all the way to the semi-finals of Worlds 2021. They demolished groups with a 5-1 record, swept HLE, and were now one game away from making their way back to the World's finals. It was all too short-lived, however, as DK dashed T1's hopes in Game 5 of the semi-finals with another tailor-made composition to counter the squad. Outranged and outlasted, T1 had to go home empty-handed once again. But that didn't mean that the year was a complete waste. If anything, T1 had learned their formula and was one step away from figuring it all out. All they needed was one last piece of the puzzle. Shortly after, T1 announced in November that Kano will not be re-signing with the org in the coming year, leaving their top lane wide open for the taking. At that time, owner Faker, Gumusi, and Kyria had already established their synergy from their time together in Worlds, and with Kana gone, they needed someone who could not only replace him, but elevate the team to the next level. The decision would be undisputed. In the face of rumors that the Shy will be heading to T1, the organization would confirm that Zeus will be joining the main roster as the sole top laner heading into 2022, finally competing the 5-man of ZOFGK. Wuje, or Zeus, is the youngest of the roster, but is arguably the most mechanically gifted of the newcomers, having not one, but 3 challenger accounts at the age of 15. After being scouted by T1 in the same year, he would win his first open tournament in the LCKAS 2020 season alongside Owner. His mechanics spoke for themselves on the Rift, and even before he knew it, the top laner was already called on to play for the main squad the year after in 2020. Even Showmaker, considered to be one of the best players at the time after his Worlds 2020 win, was lauding him as a player to watch before his pro debut in 2021.
되게 피지컬이 좋고 좀만 더 이제 가다듬어지면 되게 잘할 것 같아요.
Zeus was a rookie brimming with potential, and despite the short amount of playtime he had in Season 11, he showed promise and still had a lot of upside left to be developed.
I am inevitable.
With the roster now complete, all of a sudden, it finally clicked. T1 would go on to make their most dominant run in the LCK's history, beating their previous win streak record of 14 straight wins.
18-0 for the first time in the LCK, and they tied.
The team looked confident, poised, unbeatable, like a well-oiled machine that knew how to win from every point of the game. But the real challenges for this roster were just about to begin. After their first win again and again, no matter how well they seemed to be performing, they could never close out a series. 3-2 against RNG, 3-2 against DRX, 3-2 against JDG, upper bracket finals. The team's losses were starting to get to them, and it showed loss after loss. This roster, who broke records and went 18-0 in spring, had a chance of going down as the best team to have never won anything. Even after committing to staying together in 2023, the team was still lost on the X factor. They needed to finally win a title. Now, for perhaps one last time together, they had one chance to overcome their demons and achieve something much greater than themselves. In what could have been their last run together, the pressure couldn't have been any higher in the summer of 23. Faker's wrist is injured, and T1 looks absolutely lost without their shot caller in the mid lane. But thanks to their early wins in the season, they still managed to qualify for playoffs, giving them enough time for Faker to recover. It's at this time that questions arose of how competitive T1 was going to be with Faker coming off of an injury, and a team that looked so lackluster all split long, with or without him. But as everyone's learned over the past decade, you can never count T1 out. Despite another grueling loss against rival Gen G in the finals, T1 earned themselves space to breathe before Worlds 2023. And that was all the time the team needed to regroup and rethink just in time for the biggest tournament of the year.
사실 스프링 우승을 했을 때 생각보다 그렇게 기쁘지가 않았어요. 왜냐하면은 너무나 쉽게 했다고 생각을 했어가지고 내가 상상했던 기쁨이 이 정도인가? 뭔가 그냥 너무 쉽게 이뤄진 우승이라서 담담해버린 오히려. 근데 이제 계속 스택을 쌓아왔잖아요, 지금까지. MSI, 썸머, 월즈, 또 스프링, MSI, 썸머 이렇게 5번의 준우승을 한 지금은 너무 우승이 어려워져 버린 것 같아요, 저한테. 그래서 너무 하고 싶어진 그 우승. 근데 이제 또 이렇게 커다란 기회가 눈앞에 생기니까 많이 욕심이 나는 것 같아요. 그냥 되게 그 기쁨이 비교가 안 될 정도로 클 것 같아요. 이번에 우승을 한다면.
It's game time. T1 comes as prepared as they'll ever be. Unproven, doubted, which only meant that they had nothing left to lose. Despite all his years of competition, this was Faker's first Worlds in Korea and what many thought to be his last chance of winning his 4th title. T1 had to climb the ranks and prove themselves stage after stage. Their struggle against TL in the first round, alongside another loss to Gen G in the second round, had fans worried about the team's form heading into the rest of Worlds. But a convincing win against C9 and then BLG gave hope for their chances in the playoffs against LNG. Unfortunately, for the rest of the competition, T1 completely switched gears in playoffs. T1 changed the meta entirely, countering the status quo of Xayah and Kai'Sa in the bot lane that teams like LNG and JDG were so adept to.
Who can peel for themselves? We were talking about the Jhin!
They forced teams to adapt to their playstyle or lose without contest. Bard, for example, countered Xayah so well, who, without a flash or Featherstorm, becomes a sitting duck. Before they even knew what hit him, it was already over.
They've taken down BLG! They've taken down LNG! It is not LPL versus LCK! It is T1 versus the LPL! And they like those odds as they move to finals!
T1 was not meant to reach this far, especially against JDG, a team that was built for and was well on the way to reaching a Grand Slam. This win meant so much to T1 and the LCK, and it was kind of a win they needed to boost their confidence coming into the finals. It was as Faker said, all roads lead back to him. And just like that, T1 was now back in the finals. Against all odds, against an entire region that was predicted to win it all, back in the same position they found themselves in last year. Heading into the finals, T1 knew that they had to approach this series differently. It was more of a battle within themselves that they had to face. And that is exactly what they did. They came into the series with the mentality of champions, focusing on playing their best game rather than simply winning. They were one step away from redemption, from victory that had eluded them for so long. But this time, they were ready.
The turret, they threw down Errol, but Zayas has found two with the ultimate life! Goes down so low but isn't going to survive! Wei trying to get himself out of there, and the Shy is given up on! The Drake going down very low, and now the paranoia comes in. Faker looks for the Spirit Rush, and he does find it. The hostile takeover is massive as they get rid of Light immediately. Wei taken down for the double kill for Owner. It's heartbreaking as now they take a magical journey over Zayas. He likes this one though, 1 versus 3. He's absorbing so much, the Emperor's Divide. It comes in, but he's still alive. What is going on? Faker Tiny's up the first. Everyone's just exploding as Wei trying to get something done, but it does not matter. T1 are too strong. A decade since their first, the SKT legacy has been reignited. T1 will be your 2023 World Champions.
Finally, they had done it. After 7 long years, Faker has done it, and T1 are once again world champions. And this time, with a new generation of players that have stayed by his side for the past 2 years, unwavering until their goal has been reached. These rookies once watched Faker lift the trophy when they were still in grade school. To Zeus, Owner, Guma, and Kyria, Faker was their idol, and they wanted to rebuild and be a part of the legacy of T1. By playing their own picks, growing individually as players, and performing at the highest level of play so consistently over the past years, they have earned their spot to stand alongside Faker with the honor of being called a world champion.
And as it always is in esports, the story didn't end there. These so-called rookies didn't stop. Entering their third year as starters, a feat no team had ever achieved with this level of dominance, the organization, and perhaps even more so the players themselves, were determined to rebuild the T1 dynasty one championship at a time. And that's exactly what they did. Running it back with the same 5-man Exodia roster, they pulled off something only the legendary SKT T1 had accomplished a decade earlier. All the noise, all the doubt, all the critics throughout the 2024 season, it all built up to this moment. Faker and his now battle-tested teammates delivered the T1 miracle, back-to-back world champions. And through it all, Faker never missed a step. In Game 4 and 5, it was a one-man show. He was unkillable, carrying the series in his hands and proving once again that to be the GOAT, you simply have to be built different. But all dynasties eventually close a chapter. Sadly, this legendary 5-man roster's run ended with those back-to-back trophies. In 2025, with Zeus now joining HLE and T1 bringing in Doran, a new era begins. The pursuit of another kind of legacy. But for this roster, their story is already etched in history. They broke the curse in 2023, they conquered the world twice in a row, and now they take their bow as immortals. Not just champions, but eternal icons in the Hall of Fame.